The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the vast, empty silence of my kitchen. I leaned against the cold granite countertop, staring at the digital clock on the microwave, 2:17 a.m. The numbers glowed with a sterile, accusing light. Mark wasn't home. This wasn't entirely unusual. As a partner at a demanding architectural firm, late nights were part of the territory. Client dinners, last-minute revisions to blueprints, firefighting, sessions to save a project. I'd heard all the reasons over our 12 years of marriage. I'd always believed them. I was the understanding wife, the rock. Sarah Johnson, the woman who had it all together. But that night felt different. It was a visceral sensation, a cold knot tightening in my stomach that had nothing to do with the late hour and everything to do with the subtle, almost imperceptible shifts in the universe of my marriage. It had started with small things. The new cologne that smelled of sandalwood and ambition, a scent I'd never bought for him. The way his phone, which used to lie carelessly on the coffee table, was now a silent, black slab that never left his person, screen facing down. The distracted look in his hazel eyes during family dinners, as if he were mentally composing an email to someone far more important than his wife and 8-year-old daughter. Earlier that evening, Chloe had asked, "When will Daddy be home?" While I was tucking her in. "Soon, sweetie," I'd said, smoothing her blonde hair, so like my own. "He's just working very hard. On the big building with the glass?" She'd asked, her voice sleepy. "Yes, honey, on the big building with the glass." But even as I said the words, they felt hollow, a script I was reading from without conviction. I poured myself a glass of water, the ice cubes clinking like tiny bells in the silence. I tried to rationalize. He was 42, at the peak of his career. Stress was a given. Maybe he was just going through a phase. A midlife crisis. Perhaps he was planning a surprise for me. Our anniversary was next month. But the cold knot in my stomach refused to dissolve. Driven by a force I couldn't name, I walked out of the kitchen and into the pristine order of our home office. The large mahogany desk was something we'd bought together, a symbol of our shared life and success. Now, it felt like foreign territory. His laptop was gone, of course, taken with him to his late meeting. But my own desktop sat there, a portal to a world I was suddenly terrified to enter. I woke the screen, the familiar wallpaper, a picture of the three of us laughing on a beach in Florida, smiled back at me, a mockery of the present anxiety. I opened a browser window. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was I even looking for? Proof of my own paranoia? Or proof that my life was a carefully constructed lie? I started with the bank statements. I had access to the joint account, but Mark handled most of the finances. I logged in, my heart thudding against my ribs. The transactions scrolled by. Mortgage, utilities, grocery stores, gas. Then I saw it. A charge from the Opal Jewelers, dated 2 weeks ago. For $4,850. My breath hitched. Our anniversary wasn't for another 4 weeks. And Mark wasn't a planner. He was a last-minute, frantic florist on the way home kind of guy. A $5,000 piece of jewelry weeks in advance was completely out of character. A spark of hope flickered. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was the surprise. But the cold, logical part of my brain whispered another possibility. What if the surprise wasn't for me? I opened a new tab and logged into his frequent flyer account. We used the same password for everything, a bad habit born from 12 years of shared digital lives. The dashboard loaded. There were the usual business trips to Chicago and San Francisco. And then I saw it. A round-trip ticket to Napa Valley. For this coming weekend. A flight I knew nothing about. A trip he hadn't mentioned. The screen blurred. Napa. We'd talked about going to Napa for our 10th anniversary, but a last-minute project had come up for him. He'd promised we'd go soon. We never did. I felt a hot tear trace a path down my cheek. This was it. The proof I hadn't wanted to find. But it was circumstantial. A flight and a jewelry purchase. There could be an explanation. A business trip he'd forgotten to mention. A gift for his mother. Then I remembered the phone bill. I navigated to our mobile carrier's website. My hands were trembling now, making the mouse cursor dance erratically across the screen. I pulled up the detailed call log for Mark's number. The list was long, filled with numbers I recognized: his office, his assistant, his mother, me. And then, one number appeared with a frequency that was undeniable. Dozens of calls, some lasting over an hour, late into the night. Calls made from his car after he'd told me he was leaving the office. Calls received when he was supposedly in a meeting. I copied the number and pasted it into a search engine. Nothing. I pasted it into Facebook. A profile popped up immediately. Her name was Isabel Miller. Her profile picture was of a woman with a confident, dazzling smile and dark, glossy hair. She was beautiful, in a sharp, sophisticated way that made my own mom jeans and ponytail aesthetic feel frumpy and inadequate. She was a freelance art consultant, according to her bio. Her photos were a curated gallery of gallery openings, wine tastings, and sleek, minimalist apartments. She was everything I wasn't anymore: glamorous, unencumbered, free. I felt the room tilt. The air grew thick, difficult to breathe. This was no longer a suspicion, it was a person. A woman with a name, a face, a life that was intersecting with mine in the most brutal way possible. The sound of the garage door opening sliced through the silence like a physical blow. He was home. I quickly closed all the browser windows, wiped my face, and took a deep, shuddering breath. I had to act normal. I couldn't confront him yet. Not without being sure. Not without a plan. The thought of Chloe, sleeping peacefully upstairs, her world still intact, gave me a surge of desperate strength. I walked back into the kitchen as Mark came through the door from the garage. He looked tired, but there was a restless energy about him. He was still wearing his suit, but the tie was loosened, and he had that faint smell of expensive whiskey and his new sandalwood cologne. "Hey, you're still up," he said, his voice a little too bright. He dropped his briefcase by the door and came over to give me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. His lips felt cool and distant. "Couldn't sleep," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "Long night. The worst," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "The client from hell wanted to change the entire facade of the building. We were in that conference room for 5 hours. I'm beat." He walked to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. He didn't meet my eyes. He was lying. I could see it in the slight tension in his shoulders, in the way his gaze darted around the room, avoiding mine. The words were the same, but the music was all wrong. "That sounds awful," I said, pouring more water into my glass just to have something to do with my hands. "You should get some rest." "Yeah, I will," he said. "I'm just going to check a few emails first." He headed towards the office, the very room where I had just unearthed the seeds of our destruction. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the click of the office door closing. The silence returned, but now it was a different kind of silence. It was heavy, pregnant with secrets and lies. The hum of the refrigerator was no longer just a sound, it was the white noise backdrop to the collapse of my world. The next few days were an exercise in surreal agony. I moved through my life like a ghost. I made school lunches for Chloe, I went to my part-time graphic design job, I smiled at the neighbors. But inside, I was screaming. Every interaction with Mark was a minefield. His touch felt like a violation. His lies felt like acid. I became a detective in my own life, a role I never wanted and was terrible at. I checked his phone when he was in the shower, finding texts with Isabel that were carefully platonic on the surface but thrumming with subtext. "Looking forward to Friday. Can't wait to see the new exhibit with you." Friday, the day of the Napa flight. The jewelry receipt burned a hole in my mind. I drove to the Opal Jewelers during my lunch break. A sleek, silver-haired man greeted me. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "I hope so," I said, my voice trembling with a manufactured distress. "My husband, Mark Johnson, bought a necklace here a couple of weeks ago as an anniversary gift, but my daughter, she somehow got into it and broke the clasp. I was hoping you could repair it." The man's face softened. "Of course. Let me pull up the record." He typed on his computer. "Ah, yes. The solitaire diamond pendant. A beautiful piece." My heart stopped. A solitaire diamond pendant. I had never owned a solitaire diamond pendant. Could you describe it?" "For the insurance form," I stammered. "Certainly. It's a brilliant cut 2-carat diamond on a white gold chain. Quite stunning." I thanked him, my voice a thin whisper, and fled the store. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles were white. A 2-carat diamond. For Isabel. He was taking her to Napa and giving her a diamond. The reality of it was so much more vulgar and painful than my worst fears. The day of the trip arrived. Mark packed a small suitcase, telling me it was a last-minute site inspection in Denver. He kissed Chloe goodbye, and then he turned to me. He looked me in the eye, and with a sincerity that chilled me to the bone, he said, "I'll be back Sunday night. I love you, Sarah." The words were a weapon. I felt them physically, a sharp, twisting pain in my chest. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, a tight, jerky movement. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, the paralysis broke. A cold, clear fury took its place. I wasn't going to sit in this beautiful, empty house and wait for my life to be dismantled. I had to see it. I had to know for sure. I called my older sister, Emily. My voice was raw as I spilled the whole sordid story, the phone records, Isabel, the flight, the diamond. "Oh, Sarah," she breathed, her voice thick with heartbreak for me. "What are you going to do?" "I need you to watch Chloe," I said, the plan forming in my mind with a terrifying clarity. "I'm going to Napa." "Sarah, no, don't do that to yourself. You don't need to see it." "I do, Emily. I need to see it with my own eyes. Otherwise, a part of me will always wonder if I misunderstood, if I drove him to it. I need to burn the image into my mind so I can never go back." She tried to dissuade me, but my resolve was ironclad. An hour later, she was at my door, her face etched with worry. She pulled me into a fierce hug. "Be careful," she whispered. "And call me the second you need anything." I packed a bag with shaking hands. I booked the next flight to San Francisco, then a rental car. The entire journey was a blur. I was operating on pure adrenaline and a deep, primal need for the truth. I knew where they were staying. It hadn't been hard to find. A little more digging on his email he'd forgotten to log out on the home computer had revealed a confirmation for the Vintage Inn, a notoriously romantic, exclusive hotel in Yountville. I drove north from San Francisco, the beautiful California landscape a smear of green and gold outside my window, completely lost on me. My mind was a single, focused point of dread and determination. I reached Yountville as the sun was beginning to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the vineyard-covered hills. The Vintage Inn was even more picturesque than its website suggested, a haven of rustic charm and luxury. It was the kind of place Mark and I had dreamed of visiting. I parked my rental car at a small park across the street, with a clear view of the inn's entrance and courtyard. My heart was hammering so hard I felt lightheaded. I didn't have a plan beyond this. I just needed to see them. I waited. The minutes stretched into an hour. The sky deepened from orange to violet to a velvety blue. Lights twinkled on in the inn. I was about to give up, to think I had the wrong place, the wrong day, when I saw them. They emerged from a pathway between the vines, walking toward the main building. Mark had his arm around her shoulders. He was wearing a sweater I'd never seen before. She was wearing a chic, cream-colored dress, and around her neck, catching the last of the evening light, was a diamond pendant that sparkled with a cold, hard fire. I stopped breathing. Seeing them together was like a physical blow. It wasn't just the intimacy of his arm around her, or the way she leaned into him, laughing at something he said. It was the ease of it. The natural, comfortable way they existed together. This wasn't a sordid, back-alley affair. This was a relationship. He looked relaxed, younger. He looked the way he used to look at me, a lifetime ago. I watched, frozen, as he pulled her closer and kissed her, right there in the open, under the fairy lights strung in the trees. It was a long, tender kiss, full of a familiarity that shattered the last of my denial. The world narrowed to that single, devastating image. The hum of the refrigerator was replaced by the sound of my own heart breaking. That night, sitting in a rental car across the country from my home, watching my husband kiss another woman, revealed more than I had ever imagined. It revealed the depth of his deception. It revealed the complete and utter destruction of the life I thought I had. It revealed a stranger wearing my husband's face. But as I sat there, the hot, silent tears finally streaming down my face, something else was revealed to me in the bleak, star-dusted darkness. A strength I didn't know I possessed. A cold, clear knowledge that the woman I had been, the trusting, understanding Sarah, was gone. And the woman I would have to become would need to be smarter, stronger, and fiercely protective of what was left of her world. The truth was out, and now, I had to decide what to do with it. The game was over. The real battle for my future was just beginning. I started the car, the engine roaring to life, a decisive sound in the quiet Napa night. I didn't look back. I drove away from the picturesque inn, from the man who was no longer my husband, and towards a terrifying, uncertain future. But it was a future I would now face with my eyes wide open, no longer blinded by the comfortable lies I had chosen to believe. That night had taken everything from me, but in its brutal clarity, it had also given me the one thing I needed most, the unvarnished truth.